So it's only been 6 short months since I got my mitts on the Vivo V29 smartphone, but it's already out of date. Hoy it in the bin because here's the fresh new V30. Boasting the usual slightly bonkers design, another gorgeous full-view 6.78-inch AMOLED display, a bigger battery, some beefy camera tech, and upgraded performance. So with a somewhat hefty pinch of deja vu, let's whip the Vivo V30 on out of the box, take you on a full tour, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! So what do you get stuffed in here besides, of course, the Vivo V30? Well, you've got yourself an 80-watt Vivo flash charge adapter. Mine's a 2-pin effort because it came from abroad. You've also got yourself a USB cable, a wee pokey SIM pin. And oh yes, Vivo is still slapping in those condom cases. You can keep your V30 looking box fresh. And that is most decidedly that, so let's check out the V30. Now when it comes to the design, Vivo seems to have a strict template that it sticks to with its smartphones. And the Vivo V30 certainly doesn't stray from this template. It's a 6.78-incher, but it actually feels more compact because there's no wasted space here. That display basically fills the entire front end. You've got slightly subtle curves at the edge of the display. And as you can see there, it's a skinny wee beastie as well. And this phone weighs just under 200 grams, which again is pretty impressive for something that's not far off 7 inches. I do get a wee bit nervous with curvy screens that the responsiveness is going to be a bit crap when I grip the phone tightly, but thankfully doesn't seem to be the problem here with the Vivo V30. As you can see, I'm clutching it tight, plenty of finger and palm flab intrusion on that display, and the responsiveness absolutely fine. That shiny edging is sadly just plastic, you don't get a metal frame here, but it's the arse end here where the Vivo V30 really dazzles. Even Kuro here, super impressed. You've actually got a choice of 4 different models here with the Vivo V30, and they all boast completely different and rather striking designs. So for instance, there's the Waving Aqua version with its rippling magnetic particle effect. You got the colour change in lush green, or a more simple noble black effort. This right here is the Bloom White Vivo V30. It's got what Vivo terms a 3D petal pattern. And fair play, it does actually have a 3D effect when the light strikes it in such a way, although it is actually a completely 2D flat surface. And I do rather like how that pattern actually extends onto the camera bump as well. And I do really enjoy that soft touch finish, and the fact that it doesn't pick up greasy, grimy fingerprints or anything, so you're not constantly having to clean it off. Personally, this design ain't for me. It's a bit too bathroomy, really. Kind of reminds me of some tiles I've seen down good old Tops. And it's not Gorilla Glass protecting that display. Here on the Vivo V30, you've got Shot Zensation Alpha Glass instead. And just in case that's not enough, Vivo has also kindly slapped on a screen protector. And this phone isn't fully water resistant, it's IP54 dust and splash resistant, so it should be fine in a bit of inclement weather, but I certainly wouldn't want to get it too moist. Definitely don't go dropping it in a sink or anything like that. So that's sort of banging on about the design. What about the software running on the Vivo V30? Well, it is unmistakably Android, but Vivo has tweaked it with its own FunTouch OS launcher. Undoubtedly still the most FNAR-worthy launcher name I've come across. It's all fully up to date, Android 14 and FunTouch OS 14, and the really great news is Vivo is promising 3 OS updates and 4 years of security patching with the Vivo V30. So even though the V31 will probably be here in another 6 months, already looking forward to doing that video, at least it looks like the V30 won't be out of date anytime soon. And as far as these launches go, FunTouch pretty inoffensive, doesn't meddle too much with Android. Still got your apps tray, you can drag down that notifications bar from anywhere, plenty of quick toggles to piddle about with. And you can actually fully customize pretty much every aspect of this launcher, right down to the fingerprint sensor animations, even the wee animation that plays when you bung a cable in it. And you've got all the features that you would expect, including an always-on display, loads of different styles to choose from. You've got a dedicated gaming mode which can help you get the most out of your Genshin session. Some helpful video tools including the ability to play the likes of YouTube and Netflix videos in the background. So loads of great stuff, although unfortunately the Vivo V30 does come absolutely laden with crapware. Buckets and buckets of the stuff, the likes of Facebook, Agoda, hot apps and hot games, spoiler alert, not particularly hot, and annoyingly can't be got rid of. At least not via conventional means. You've got Lazard and just a bunch of stuff I'm not even sure what half of it is. And thankfully quite a bit of it can just be deleted straight off, free up a bit of extra space, although thankfully I'm not exactly struggling in that department because my review model of the Vivo V30 comes with half a terabyte of the stuff. Although you can also pick up this phone in 128 and 256 gig flavors. And while I'm unlikely to need it anytime soon, sadly that storage is not expandable via microSD memory cards. You've only got space for a pair of SIMs in that tray. Now that near 6.8-inch AMOLED display is a bit of a cracker, frankly. It's a 2800 by 1260 resolution panel, so nice and crisp despite the size of this thing. And as it's AMOLED tech, not particularly shocking that you've got nice sharp contrast. Those colours are pretty punchy and poppy when you slap on a bit of animated fare. You've got full HDR10 streaming support, although just like the Samsungs of this world, there's no Dolby Vision action here. And when you max out that screen brightness, it'll certainly do a decent job outdoors. It'll counter a good bit of glare from above. Certainly no complaints in that department. And the refresh rate does max out at 120 Hz, but this isn't an LTPO display. It can't drop all the way down to around 1 Hz. Help preserve the battery when there's not really any on-screen action. Sadly, not quite such good news when it comes to the audio spaffed out by the Vivo V30, as it is a basic mono speaker setup. Everything you'll hear is spaffed out by this bottom firing blaster. Instead of actually reviewing phones, I really should just shoot a video of them sat there on the desk while my cat sits next to them and gives himself a thorough tonguing. Or maybe just start an entirely different channel altogether. Cat spurt. Actually, that sounds all kinds of wrong, just forget I said that. So the clarity is not too bad. It's not like overly tinny or anything like that, but I have found that when I've been gaming, for instance, with the Vivo V30, sometimes I accidentally muffle that speaker a bit with my palms. And overall, you know, it's fine for a bit of YouTube or whatever, but I would stick with headphones most of the time. No headphone jack, sadly, so you are basically looking at a bit of Bluetooth, unless you fancy getting all dongly. The Bluetooth streaming seems absolutely fine so far. But the big upgrade here, really, versus the Vivo V29 is Qualcomm's mid-range hero, the Snapdragon 7 Gen 3, which powers this blower. And the Vivo V30 is the first smartphone I've tested which has the Snapdragon 7 Gen 3 stuffed inside, and so far I've been quietly impressed. The everyday user experience, nice and fluid. Even when I'm absolutely rinsing the camera, it doesn't stumble. And this smooth sailing certainly helped along by the fact that Vivo has generously stuffed 12 gigs of RAM into my review model. Everyone who complains that I don't do benchmarking very often, well, here's some benchmarking. Look at those numbers. Whoa! Things not quite so fluid if you decide to play a bit of Genshin Impact on the highest graphic settings. Certainly doesn't stick to 60 frames per second. You'll see quite a few stumbles and judders here and there. But if you just dial it down a bit to the sort of medium to high graphic settings instead, things get a lot more smooth and playable and certainly enjoyable. And the good news is you can game on Genshin for literally an hour, 2 hours, however long you fancy on the Vivo V30, and it doesn't get beyond slightly lukewarm. So yeah, the Vivo V30 certainly keeps its cool under pressure, no worries at all there. And as I mentioned earlier, you've got a gaming mode as well, so you can block notifications, tweak all kinds of different settings to make sure you get the most out of this blower. In fact, Vivo is so confident in the performance here on the V30 that it reckons it will stay judder-free for up to 50 months. Just over 4 years, so certainly it'll be interesting to return to it again in 2028 or whatever, if the whiskey hasn't done me in by then. And the battery tech is another upgrade here over the old V29 as well, as you've got a bigger 5,000 mAh capacity cell stuffed inside. So bigger battery, and of course that 7 Gen 3 appears to be pleasantly energy efficient as well, as I mentioned before. It doesn't seem to heat up even when you're Genshining all afternoon long. And that battery drain is a mere trickle most of the day. Get hours and hours of screen on action from a full charge. And even if that juice is fully depleted, no worries, the Vivo V30 supports 80 watt wired charging, so bung a cable in it. And even if it's completely dead, 1 hour later you'll have a full charge, although sadly no, there is no wireless charging support here. And there's also been some changes for the optics as well. So the Vivo V30 sports a 50 megapixel primary camera with optical image stabilization. And as always, you've got Vivo's Aura Light shenanigans here as well, so you can activate this in the flash settings. As you can see there, it's not your bog standard flash, it's a proper full-on square of light. And you can actually tweak the color temperature of the flash by sliding this wee bar here, from proper warm over on the left here to super cool over on the right. And personally, I quite appreciate that warm flash mode. It makes me look like I've actually got some kind of skin tone. The Vivo V30 can certainly shoot some attractive looking shots across a range of conditions, including those low light snaps. Got some good portrait chops on here as well. Can pick up plenty of fine detail. And you do actually have a high resolution mode on here if you want to shoot at the full 50 megapixels as well. And that's quite handy if you want to crop into a shot because you don't have a telephoto snapper on the V30. And of course, there's no pixel binning in this mode, so you've just got to make sure the lighting conditions aren't cack. It's a simple dual lens setup here on the V30, which I'm perfectly happy about. No macro bollocks or anything like that. Secondary shooter is a 50 megapixel ultra wide angle snapper, so another upgrade. And like that primary camera, this can again capture quite a good bit of detail, quite accurate looking tones as well, and works well across a range of conditions. For your home movie shenanigans, you can shoot full HD footage at 30 or 60 frames per second, but if you bump up to 4K Ultra HD, as you can see there, maxes out at 30 FPS. And that 4K footage looks pretty bloody good as well. You've got decent image stabilization here on the Vivo V30, strong audio pickup, so no complaints there. And then around front, just like on the Vivo V29, the V30 boasts a 50 megapixel selfie shooter. So yeah, those sags and wrinkles have nowhere to hide as long as you keep the beauty mode knocked off. Can come pretty well with strong lighting in the background. And while you don't have the aura flash, you do have a screen flash feature for those low light moments. And once again, just like with the rear camera, you can shoot up to 4K resolution footage at 30 FPS, otherwise full HD at 30 or 60 frames per second. And it's a very similar story to the rear cam. Again, plenty of crispy detail, a bit too much crispy detail. Audio pickup's decent. I've had no problem Skyping or Zooming or anything with this thing. So there you have it, my lovelies. That in a delicious wee nutshell is the fresh new Vivo V30. And as you can see, quite a few upgrades over the Vivo V29 and not that much to moan about at all. It's overall been quite a pleasurable experience. It's not quite beefy enough to run Genshin on the highest graphic settings, but you know, the performance overall, nice and smooth, nice and fluid, good battery life, the software, you know, some pretty decent features packed in there, and at least you've got that dedicated OS and security support. A few little iffy bits like the mono speaker setup and the fact that you've got that crapware piled on there, but honestly, my gripes are few and far between. So that's what I reckon of the Vivo V30. Be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a ruddy, wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone. Love you.